The champagne glass shattered, and Derek Hamilton knew he was dying. His hand trembled as he clutched the edge of his desk, the doctor's words still ringing in his ears like a death sentence. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe 8 if he was lucky. Lucky. He almost laughed at the word. 55 years old, $10 billion in the bank, and he couldn't buy himself more time. Derek stumbled to the window overlooking Manhattan. The city glittered below him like a kingdom he'd conquered. But what did it matter now? His empire would crumble the moment he took his last breath. No wife, no children. Well, there had been a son once, but Michael died 10 years ago in a car accident, and that loss had hollowed Derek out completely. 3 failed marriages later, he was alone in a penthouse that cost more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes. His lawyer's voice echoed in his mind from their meeting an hour ago. Without a direct heir, Derek, your cousins will tear the company apart. Richard is already positioning himself. Your legacy, everything you built, it'll be gone within a year. Legacy. The word tasted like ash. Derek poured himself a scotch with shaking hands and downed it in one burning gulp. There had to be a way. There had to be something he could do. His mind raced through possibilities, each more desperate than the last, until one thought crystallized with startling clarity. He needed an heir. He needed one now, and he needed to think like the ruthless businessman he'd always been. The answer, when it came, was as cold as it was practical. He would pay for one. 3 floors below in the service quarters, Cynthia Andrew scrubbed the bathroom tile until her knuckles ached. It was her 3rd job of the day. She'd waitressed the breakfast shift at Joe's Diner, worked a 4-hour stint at the grocery store, and now she was here, cleaning the penthouse of a billionaire she'd only glimpsed twice in 6 months. The agency paid well for this particular client, probably because he was never home and the place was enormous. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Cynthia peeled off her rubber gloves and saw her brother Marcus's name flashing on the screen. Her stomach clenched. He never called unless it was bad news. Marcus? What's wrong? Suen, it's Mom. His voice cracked. She collapsed at church this morning. They rushed her to Grady Memorial. The doctors say she needs surgery. Her heart, Suen. It's bad. The phone nearly slipped from Cynthia's grip. How bad? They're saying $200,000 for the surgery. Insurance denied it, called it a pre-existing condition. Without it, she's got maybe 3 months. The world tilted. Cynthia pressed her forehead against the cool tile wall, fighting the wave of nausea that crashed over her. $200,000. She might as well need $2 million. Even working 3 jobs, she barely cleared $30,000 a year. She'd been sending money home to Atlanta every month, but it was never enough. It would never be enough. I'll figure something out, she heard herself say. Tell Mom I love her. Tell her I'll fix this. Siwan, how are you gonna? I don't know, Marcus, but I will. I have to. She ended the call and slid down the bathroom wall until she was sitting on the floor, her back against the tub. The sobs came then, wrenching and raw, tearing out of her chest like something feral. 25 years old, and she was failing. Failing her mother, failing her family, failing at the one thing that mattered. She cried until there were no tears left, until she was just hollow and empty and so tired. Are you all right? Cynthia's head snapped up. Derek Hamilton stood in the doorway, still wearing his suit, looking uncomfortable and out of place in his own bathroom. She scrambled to her feet, mortification burning through her. Mr. Hamilton, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were home. I'll just... Stop. He held up a hand. I'm not going to fire you for being human. What happened? She shouldn't tell him. He was her employer, not her friend. But something in his face, something weary and sad and unexpectedly kind, made the words spill out anyway. My mother needs heart surgery. $200,000. I don't have it. I'll never have it. Derek studied her for a long moment. Cynthia had the strangest sensation that he was seeing her, really seeing her, for the first time. Not just the maid who cleaned his home, but a person with a life and problems and a mother who was dying. I'm sorry, he said finally. That's an impossible situation. Yeah. Cynthia grabbed her cleaning supplies, desperate to escape. It is. She left before he could say anything else, before the humiliation could sink in any deeper. She finished her shift in a daze and took the subway back to her cramped studio apartment in Queens. Maya, her roommate and best friend since college, was already home, sprawled on their second-hand couch with a bowl of ramen. "Girl, you look like death," Maya said, setting down her bowl. "What happened?" Cynthia told her everything. About her mother, about the surgery, about breaking down in front of the billionaire who owned the penthouse she cleaned. By the end, Maya was pacing their tiny living room, her braids swinging with each agitated step. "This is so messed up," Maya said. "Healthcare in this country is criminal. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Take out loans I'll never pay back? Sell a kidney?" Cynthia laughed bitterly. "Maybe I should just rob a bank." "Don't even joke about that." They sat in miserable silence, the weight of the impossible pressing down on both of them. Cynthia's phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe to accept. "Ms. Andrew? This is Derek Hamilton. I'd like to speak with you tomorrow morning. 9 a.m., my penthouse. It's about a business proposition." Cynthia's heart hammered. "A business proposition?" "Yes, I think it could be mutually beneficial. Will you come?" She should say no. Nothing good ever came from billionaires and their propositions. But she thought of her mother in a hospital bed, her time running out with each labored heartbeat. "I'll be there." The next morning, Cynthia stood in Derek Hamilton's study, a room she'd dusted 100 times but never really entered. Derek sat behind that desk, looking somehow older than he had yesterday. Tired. Sick, maybe. "Sit down, Ms. Andrew." She sat, perched on the edge of a leather chair that could have swallowed her whole. Derek steepled his fingers, and when he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. "I'm going to be direct because I don't have time for anything else. I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer. I have less than a year." Cynthia's breath caught. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm telling you because it's relevant to my proposition." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I need an heir. Someone to inherit my company, my fortune, everything I've built. Without one, it all falls apart. I don't understand what that has to do with me. I want to pay you to have my child." The words hung in the air like something obscene. Cynthia felt the blood drain from her face, then rush back in a hot wave of anger. "Excuse me? $50 million, Derek continued, as if he were negotiating a stock purchase. "Full medical care, the best doctor's money can buy. You'd live here during the pregnancy. After the birth, you can walk away or stay involved in the child's life. That's negotiable. All I need is a biological heir. Someone to carry on the Hamilton name." Cynthia shot to her feet. "You want to pay me to be your broodmare? Are you insane?" "I'm desperate." For the first time, emotion cracked through Derek's careful composure. "I'm dying, Ms. Andrew. I have no family left except vultures circling my estate. My son died a decade ago. This is my last chance to leave something behind, someone behind, who might actually give a damn about the company and the 50,000 people who work for it. So buy a sperm bank or adopt or literally anything other than this. There's no time. Adoption takes years. A relationship takes time I don't have. This is a business arrangement. Clean. Simple. Lucrative for both of us." Cynthia felt sick. "I'm not interested in your money. Your mother is dying, Ms. Andrew. 200,000 for surgery, you said. 50 million would cover that and set up your entire family for life. Your brother could go to college. You could finish your degree. You'd never have to work 3 jobs again." The cruelty of it took her breath away. He'd done his research, knew exactly where to apply pressure. She wanted to slap him. She wanted to scream. Instead, she walked toward the door. "Ms. Andrew." "Cynthia." His voice stopped her. "I know how this sounds. I know what you must think of me. You'd be right to think it. But consider this. I'm offering you a way to save your mother's life. That's not nothing. Think about it. You have 48 hours. Cynthia left without another word. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button. We have more captivating stories coming your way. Drop a comment below telling us what you think Cynthia should do. The next 2 days were torture. Cynthia couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything except Derek Hamilton's obscene offer. $50 million. Her mother's surgery. A life free from the crushing weight of poverty that had defined her entire existence. But at what cost? You're actually considering this, Maya said on the second night. They were sitting on their apartment's fire escape, the city humming below them. I don't know what I'm considering, Cynthia admitted. It's insane. It's wrong on every possible level. But my mom is dying, Maya. The hospital called today. She's getting worse. Without that surgery, Cynthia's voice broke. I'm going to lose her. Maya was quiet for a long moment. If you do this, it changes everything. You know that, right? Your whole life, who you are, everything. I know. But that kind of money. Maya shook her head. I hate that I'm even saying this, but that kind of money changes everything too. You could help so many people. Your mom, Marcus, all those kids you want to teach someday. You could actually make a difference. By selling myself. By making an impossible choice in an impossible situation. Maya grabbed Cynthia's hand. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But don't let pride kill your mother. That's not noble. That's just sad. At midnight on the second day, Cynthia called Derek Hamilton. I have conditions, she said without preamble. I'm listening. $5 million up front for my mother's surgery. The rest in a trust one control. My family never knows the real arrangement. They think we're in a relationship. And the child, if I agree to this, gets raised with values. Not spoiled. Not turned into another rich asshole. They learn what it means to work, to care about people who have less. Agreed. I'm not finished. Cynthia's voice hardened. I want it in writing that I have equal say in every major decision about this child's life. Education, where they live, everything. You might be paying me, but I won't be cut out like I'm just an incubator. There was a pause. Then, fair enough. Come by tomorrow. We'll have the lawyers draft everything. Cynthia hung up and stared at her phone. She'd just agreed to have a billionaire's baby for money. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to jump, with no idea if there was water below or just rocks. God help her, she just jumped. The IVF clinic was all white walls and hushed voices, clinical and cold as a morgue. Cynthia sat in the waiting room beside Derek, both of them silent, both of them pretending this was normal. A nurse called her name, and she followed on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Derek remained in the waiting room, staring at his phone like it held the secrets of the universe. This was what she'd agreed to, this sterile, transactional process. No intimacy, no relationship, just science and contracts and $50 million. The doctor explained the procedure in calm, professional tones. Hormone injections, egg retrieval, implantation, all very routine, very safe. Cynthia nodded and signed forms and tried not to think about what she was really doing. 3 weeks later, she took a pregnancy test in Derek's penthouse guest bathroom. Positive. She stared at the 2 pink lines, and something complicated twisted in her chest. Relief that her mother's surgery was already scheduled, paid for in full. Fear of what came next. And something else, something she didn't want to name. This was a life growing inside her. Not just a contract. Person. She found Derek in his study, hunched over his laptop. He looked up when she entered, and the question was written all over his face. I'm pregnant, she said. Something flickered across his features. Relief, maybe, or fear. Good. That's good. The lawyers will release the next payment installment. That was it. No congratulations. No acknowledgement that this was anything more than a successful business transaction. Cynthia turned to leave. Ms. Andrew. Cynthia. She paused. Thank you. She didn't respond. What was there to say? Per the contract, Cynthia moved into the penthouse's guest wing. 6 rooms. More space than she'd ever lived in. Decorated in shades of cream and gold that felt like a luxury hotel. She had her own bathroom, her own sitting room, even a small kitchenette. It should have felt like paradise. Instead, it felt like a gilded cage. Derek kept his distance. They saw each other at breakfast sometimes, exchanging polite nods before retreating to separate corners of the enormous apartment. He went to his office downtown. She went to her online classes, using the education fund he'd established as part of their agreement. They were strangers sharing a space, nothing more. The first trimester was hell. Morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that made her bones ache, mood swings that left her crying over television commercials. Cynthia suffered through it alone, too proud to ask Derek for help, too isolated to call Maya, who was still working their old apartment. One night, around week 10, she woke to violent nausea. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick, retching until there was nothing left. When she finally looked up, Derek was standing in the doorway in pajama pants and a t-shirt, his hair messed from sleep. "Go away," she managed. Instead, he wet a washcloth and handed it to her. "My ex-wife, Michael's mother, had terrible morning sickness. Ginger tea helped. I'll make some." He was gone before she could protest. Cynthia cleaned herself up and found him in the kitchen, boiling water like he actually knew what he was doing. He made the tea in silence and handed her the mug. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You're carrying my child. It's the least I can do." They stood in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, sipping tea, the silence less hostile than before, almost comfortable. "Why did you really do this?" Cynthia asked. "You could have found a surrogate through an agency. Someone who does this professionally." Derek was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because they would have been a stranger. Professional. Distant. And I'm dying, Cynthia. I don't know what I wanted. Something real, maybe. Something that mattered. So you hired me." "Yes." He met her eyes. "I know how that sounds. I know what I am. But you needed money, I needed an heir. It seemed like a solution. To you, maybe. Are you regretting it?" Cynthia thought about her mother, recovering from surgery in Atlanta, her heart strong again. She thought about Marcus, enrolled at Georgia State with his tuition paid in full. She thought about the life growing inside her. "I don't know what I'm feeling," she admitted. "This wasn't supposed to be complicated." "No," Derek agreed. "It wasn't. But it was becoming complicated whether they wanted it to or not." Derek started coming to the doctor's appointments. At first, Cynthia thought it was just him protecting his investment, making sure everything was progressing normally. But when the ultrasound technician found the heartbeat, strong and fast like galloping hooves, Derek's hand found hers and squeezed. When they saw the first grainy images of their baby, he had tears in his eyes. "It's a boy," the doctor said at the 20-week scan. Derek let out a shaky breath. "A son. I'm going to have another son." The pain in his voice was raw and real. Cynthia understood then that this wasn't about legacy or business or any of the cold, practical reasons he'd given. This was about Michael, the son he'd lost. This was about getting a second chance at something precious that had been torn away. Against every bit of common sense she possessed, Cynthia felt her heart soften toward him. They started having dinner together. It began accidentally. Derek ordered too much takeout and asked if she wanted to share. Then it happened again. And again. Soon it was routine. They'd sit at the massive dining table, just the two of them in a space meant for 20, and they'd talk. Derek told her about building his company from nothing, about his failed marriages, about Michael who'd been brilliant and kind and nothing like his ruthless father. Cynthia told him about growing up poor in Atlanta, about her father who died when she was 12, about her dreams of teaching literature to kids who looked like her. "You'd be a good teacher," Derek said one night. "You're patient, thoughtful. You see people. You don't know me well enough to know that." "Don't I?" His eyes held hers. "I think I'm starting to." It was dangerous, this growing intimacy. Cynthia felt it like a warning bell, but she couldn't seem to stop. Derek wasn't the cold businessman she'd imagined. He was funny, self-deprecating, surprisingly well-read. He quoted poetry while doing dishes. He made her laugh. When his chemotherapy made him sick, she held his hand and read to him until he fell asleep. They were becoming friends. Maybe more than friends. The shift happened on a Tuesday night in her 6th month. They were watching an old movie, something black and white and romantic, curled up on opposite ends of the couch. Derek was having a good day, his color better than it had been in weeks. The baby was active, doing somersaults that made Cynthia gasp. "He's moving," she said. "Can I?" Derek gestured to her belly. She nodded. He moved closer, placing his hand where hers had been. His eyes widened when he felt the kick. "That's incredible. He's strong. He's stubborn. Wonder where he gets that." Derek laughed, and the sound was younger than his years, genuine and warm. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. The space between them felt charged, dangerous. Derek's hand was still on her belly, but his gaze was on her face. "Cynthia," he said softly. "I think I'm—" She kissed him before he could finish. It was impulsive and terrifying and felt like jumping off that cliff all over again. Derek froze for half a heartbeat, then kissed her back with an intensity that stole her breath. His hands tangled in her hair, and she pressed closer, 6 months pregnant and aching for something that had nothing to do with contracts or money. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. "We shouldn't have done that," Cynthia whispered. "No," Derek agreed. "We shouldn't have." But that night, after hours of talking and more kissing and careful tenderness, she ended up in his bed. They made love slowly, carefully, and it felt nothing like a transaction. Felt real, terrifyingly real. Afterward, lying in Derek's arms while he traced patterns on her shoulder, Cynthia whispered, "What are we doing?" "I don't know, but I think I'm falling in love with you." "Derek." "I know. It's not part of the agreement. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did." He tilted her face up to his. "I love you, Cynthia. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you call me on my bullshit. I love that you're carrying my son. I love everything about you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I love you too. God help me. I love you too." They should have known it couldn't last. The scandal broke 3 weeks later. Someone had leaked the story, the contract, the arrangement, all of it. TMZ ran it first. Billionaire's baby deal with Black Maid. The tabloids exploded. Photos of Cynthia, heavily pregnant, leaving the penthouse. Speculation about how much Derek had paid her. Think pieces about exploitation and power dynamics and racial implications. The comments were vicious. Gold digger. Whore. Welfare queen who hit the jackpot. Cynthia made the mistake of reading them once and spent an hour vomiting, though whether from morning sickness or horror she couldn't say. Derek's board of directors called an emergency meeting. His cousin Richard, the one who'd leaked the story, was calling for Derek to step down. The company's stock was dropping. Everything was falling apart. "Pack your things," Derek told her that night. His face was granite. "I'm moving you to a secure location. Somewhere the press can't find you. I'm not running away. Cynthia, they're tearing you apart. Let me protect you. By hiding me? By confirming everything they're saying? That I'm just some transaction you're ashamed of? That's not. Isn't it?" Her voice rose. "Your board wants me gone. Your family wants me gone. Maybe everyone's right. Maybe I am just the help who got lucky. Don't say that. Don't ever say that." "Why not? It's what they all think. What they all know." She was crying now, great heaving sobs. "I can't do this, Derek. I can't raise a child in this spotlight, with everyone thinking I trapped you, thinking I'm just the woman I love." Derek grabbed her shoulders. "You're the woman I love, the mother of my child, the only real thing in my life. But that's not how the world sees it. That's not how anyone sees it." They fought for hours, saying things they didn't mean, hurting each other with the skill of people who knew exactly where to cut deepest. In the end, Cynthia packed her bags and called Maya to come get her. "If you leave, I won't stop you," Derek said. His voice was hollow. "I won't trap you here. But know this. I've never felt more alive than these past months with you. You saved me, Cynthia. Not the baby, not the heir. You." She left anyway, because she was scared and hurt and the whole world was crushing down on her shoulders. She made it 3 weeks. 3 weeks in Maya's apartment, watching the scandal grow, watching Derek's health deteriorate without her, watching the baby kick and knowing his father was dying alone. Her mother called from Atlanta, recovered and healthy, and said, "Baby, what does your heart say?" Her heart said she was an idiot. Derek's press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. Cynthia watched it from Maya's laptop, her heart in her throat. He looked terrible, gaunt, pale, leaning heavily on the podium. But his voice was strong. "I'm dying," he told the cameras, told the world. "That's not news. But what I want to say is this. I made a business arrangement that became the greatest love of my life." Cynthia's breath caught. Cynthia Andrew is brilliant, compassionate, and worth 1,000 of me. I approached her with a cold, calculated offer because I was desperate and selfish. But she showed me what it means to be human again, to love, to hope. She gave me a reason to fight for every extra day. His voice broke. I love her, not because of any contract, but because she's everything I'm not, everything I wish I'd been. If she'll have me, I want whatever time I have left to be as her husband, not her employer. The press erupted with questions. Derek ignored them all. "Cynthia, if you're watching, I'm sorry. For everything. Come home." Cynthia was already calling a cab. She found him in the penthouse, sitting in the dark, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. When he saw her, hope flared in his eyes. "You're an idiot for doing that press conference," she said. "I know. Everyone's going to have opinions. This won't be easy. I know that too. I love you anyway, you stubborn old man." Derek stood on shaky legs and pulled her into his arms. "Marry me. For real. Not for show, not for the press. Because I love you and I want whatever time I have left to be spent loving you." "Yes," she whispered against his chest. "Yes." They married quietly in the penthouse with just Maya, Cynthia's mother and brother, and Derek's handful of remaining friends. No press, no spectacle. Just two people who'd found each other in the most impossible way, promising to love each other for whatever time they had. For weeks later, at 37 weeks pregnant, Cynthia went into labor. Derek held her hand through all of it, even when she screamed that she hated him, even when the pain made her cruel. When their son was born, tiny and perfect and screaming his arrival to the world, Derek cried like his heart was breaking and healing all at once. "Hope," Cynthia had wanted to name him, but Derek shook his head. "Michael," he said, "after his brother. So he knows love came before him." "Michael Hope Hamilton," Cynthia agreed. Derek lived for 6 more weeks. 6 precious weeks of holding his son, of whispering promises to him, of making Cynthia swear she'd tell Michael about both his fathers, the ruthless businessman and the man who learned to love. He died peacefully on a Tuesday morning with Cynthia beside him, holding his hand, telling him it was okay to let go. At the funeral, Cynthia stood with Michael in her arms and refused to cry. Derek had given her everything. Not the money, but the chance to be loved completely and to love in return. That was worth more than $50 million. That was worth everything. 2 years later, Cynthia finished her teaching degree. She ran Derek's charitable foundation, focusing on healthcare access for low-income families and education programs in underserved communities. Michael was walking now, talking, laughing, a perfect mix of both his parents. When people asked about his father, she told him the truth, that Derek Hamilton had been flawed and desperate and made a terrible proposition, but that he'd learned to love, that he'd changed, that their story was complicated and messy and real. Was it worth it? Maya asked one day as they watched Michael play in the penthouse that was now Cynthia's home. Cynthia thought about everything, the scandal, the judgment, the impossible choice that had led her here. She thought about Derek's last words. "Thank you for saving me." "Yeah," she said softly. "It was worth it. Thank you so much for watching. If the story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories. What did you think of Derek and Cynthia's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. See you in the next story.